Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. And boy, do I have an episode for you today. You guys, I am interviewing a friend of mine, Andrea Ames. She is a client retention specialist. She's been working in this area for years and years and years, decades and decades. And we go into some really awesome topics about client retention, but we don't stop there. We talk about how you can focus on your onboarding process, your actual client experience, and the follow-up process. Because you guys, there are so many estheticians out there who are spinning their wheels, trying to get new clients in the door, spending so much energy on marketing and networking and showing up for events and trying to get their social media right, that they're not paying attention to the clients on their table, which is a huge opportunity, right? You want those people who are there in your practice, who you've already got in the door. You want them to have an unbelievable, unforgettable customer experience. And that I've shared so many times about the Harvard Business Review study that says that a 5% increase in client retention can increase your profitability by 25 to 95%. So if you focus on that, if you spend your energy and attention on how can I increase my client retention? How can I go deep with the existing clients that I have rather than focusing on constantly discounting to get new people in the door and not paying attention to the ones once I already got them there, or not paying attention at the level that I should be, that will, switching your mindset to focus on that client retention will grow your business. So I love the conversation that I have with Andrea. It is definitely worth a listen. It's a little bit longer than our normal episodes, but that is because there was so much value in what she brought to the table. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and play that interview with Andrea. All right, you guys, I have Andrea Ames here, who is the host of the podcast After the Sale. Andrea, thank you so much for being here.
I am so excited. Thank you for inviting me.
So in Spa Retail Rockstar, which is my training program for estheticians on how to increase their retail sales by 500 to 5,000 per month, you would think that we talk a lot about sales techniques and things like that. And we do. We get into that. But one of the most important parts of the program is client retention.
Ooh, yay! I knew I loved you for a reason.
And I know that is your area of expertise. So why don't you go ahead and give our listeners just a quick background on you? I know you've been working in this area for about 35 years, but go ahead and just kind of let people know why you are an expert in client retention.
Sure. So today I help businesses with information products like courses and memberships and workshops to take their customers from what I call audience to advocates. And I do that using my Member Keepers customer retention framework. So throughout my career, I've worked with high tech like software, hardware, finance, and so on. But information products are really my jam because I have a content strategy and architecture background. So I started out my career as a technical writer, and I found pretty quickly that what I did was super important to make customers successful. They would get a product and they wouldn't necessarily know how to use it. Sometimes, in fact, often the products weren't super well designed. So the documentation that they got with that product, or the product training, or even the information they got if they called tech support, that was often all that stood between them and failure, frankly. And I found that that was the piece of the work I did that I was super passionate about. I felt like my job was to make customers successful. And in fact, I built quite a speaking persona, I guess, in my industry, did a lot of teaching, workshops, keynotes at conferences, and so on. And I have one conference that I go to every year. It's called LavaCon. And the guy who owns it, Jack Molisani, he usually introduces me and says, when I first met Andrea and asked her what she did, she said, I make customers successful. Now, this is in an industry of technical writers and a conference of technical writers. So I never really thought of myself as a technical writer or a content person only. I have always felt like content was a means to an end. It was really a means to making customers successful. And what I learned as I grew in my career in corporate is that the business value of content is customer retention. And so when I got out of corporate and I started consulting, again, mostly with high-tech companies, I realized that the consulting that I was doing was really teaching those content teams and content people to be focused on customer retention. And that is really what I had been doing for especially the last 15 years or so in my corporate role. And so as I moved into my online business, I realized I started off focusing on and thinking about content. How can I help entrepreneurs with content? And I thought it's not really about the content. The content is a vehicle. And the goal is really to retain customers. And to actually, the real goal is to make advocates out of your customers. I mean, yes, you want to retain them. Yes, it would be great to sell them more and make them super happy and successful. But in the end, you really want them to be advocates for you. You want them to help you sell, essentially. You want them to be, Kevin Kelly's 1,000 true fans, right? You want them to be the people who are with you every step of the way, who are excited to buy your next thing or even listen to your podcast or go out and pick up your latest freebie. I have several people that I follow that I'm like a true fan of. And I listen to their podcast and I go out and get their free stuff. It's like I've bought every course. I can't imagine there's something they're saying in this freebie that isn't in this course I bought for $1,000 or $2,000, but I go out and get it anyway, right? That's the kind of person I think that every business should be trying to engage and build a relationship with. So my real focus is on that relationship. It's on finding a way to make your customers the people who are going to follow you everywhere.
So to relate this to spa, because I know some of our estheticians are like, technical, what the heck? Online business? What do you mean? But to relate it to spa, there's so many in spa in general, in business in general, you can take so many concepts and they're bigger picture concepts and you just apply them to your business. So
exactly.
What you're talking about, Andrea, with client retention and even content creation can easily be applied to spa if we look at, what is the protocol that happens after a client comes in and gets a service from us.
Exactly.
What are the emails that are sent to them? What are the phone calls that are made? What is that whole experience like? And when you're talking about creating advocates, in spa, something that's really big, everyone loves word of mouth referrals.
Yes.
The relationships that we as estheticians build with our clients are so special. And they're very different, I would argue, than any other industry. Because in spa, we have women and men that come to us and they tell us things that they don't like about themselves.
Yes.
They open up, they're vulnerable, they trust us. There's this close relationship that I call a sacred relationship because they're opening up to us more than you would to your Starbucks barista or, the person at your local boutique. Like they are coming in and talking to us about the hair that grows out of their chin, about the brown spots, the pimples, what makes them insecure.
Yes, exactly.
And so we're creating these very special relationships. And that's why word of mouth is so important, because it's not just like, does the barista make a good coffee? It's, can they solve my problem? Do I feel taken care of? And, it goes deeper than that. So
yes,
go ahead.
So I was going to say absolutely to everything you said. And I think it really comes down to that relationship. And there's a totally different level of trust that has to exist there. And I think that you nailed it when you said it's all about that experience. And I would even take it further back and say it's the experience from the time they make their appointment until the end of the relationship. So that onboarding period is super, super important. And I was super excited to talk to you because I am a big frequenter of spas. I get a massage at least every 2 weeks. When I lived in California, I got a facial every 2 weeks. I got my
We love you.
got my eyelashes tinted once a month. I'm a huge fan of the spa and the spa experience. I think to me, it's healthcare, right? I mean, feeling good about yourself and getting it done in a comfortable, trusting environment is huge. And so I think there's a level of trust there that having a one and done attitude about your clients when you're in the spa industry is a death knell, right? I mean, you can't afford that. I mean, even that first appointment, that the whole experience around the first appointment, I would call that onboarding. So I've in my whole framework, I have something called outstanding onboarding. And I think that whole first appointment, that initial success, the goal of that onboarding is to have that person walk away feeling better than they ever have, feeling a super connection with you as the person who's performing that service for them. So that when you say, and would you like to set up your next appointment? They've already been thinking about when am I free again? So I think that's really, really, really important. And that trust in the relationship is key.
It's the whole under promise, over deliver.
Yes.
How can we surprise and delight our clients?
Yes.
And the reason for this, so I notice in spa, so many, and in the Facebook groups and things like this, there's so many people that are talking about how can I get more clients? I've got to get new clients in the door. I need more clients. And that's great. You do. Like every spa business will lose about 10 to 20% of their existing clients per year. And that has nothing to do with the provider. I mean, that can be if someone gets pregnant and can't do the services anymore, if someone moves away, if someone's financial situation changes. So yes, you do constantly have to be getting new clients in. But one of my favorite studies is done by Harvard Business Review. And they did a study that said a 5% increase in client retention will increase your profits by 25 to 95%. And so, I know you can probably rattle off some of these other studies about like how it costs so much more to gain a new client and to build that trust with them than it does to go deep with an existing client.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, it's depending on the industry, it's anywhere from 5 to 10 times the cost of retention to acquire and onboard, essentially get them to the point of being what you would call a customer, spending money with you, et cetera. So it's very, very expensive to acquire a new customer.
So what advice would you give to an esthetician? So a lot of our listeners of this podcast are solo estheticians. They are one-woman shows. They are doing the treatments, they're doing their marketing, they're doing all of this stuff on their own. And so it becomes a unique opportunity to find the time and to manage your time in a way that you can be fully present with your clients, but also be the business owner, be the entrepreneur, and lead that ship in the direction that you want it to go. So if someone is looking at like, how can I improve? Where do I find my gaps? Whether it's the onboarding, whether it's the follow-up, like how do you advise them to kind of get started on this, like looking at what their client retention is and how they can improve that?
So I can think of a couple of things, and these are part of my framework. And as you mentioned earlier, they really are general themes that would apply to any business. But I think in particular for a spa business where you are trying to build that really deep sense of trust right away and that deep connection right away, they're probably most important of all. The first is what I call absolute alignment. And I think in particular, when you're dealing with such truly, I think of my relationship with my massage therapist and esthetician, it's an intimate relationship. I mean, she's touching me, right? She's got her hands on my face and so on. And so I think being really attuned to and open to what your clients are saying, what they say they need, I think that is really, really super important. And I suspect at least all the estheticians and massage therapists and so on that I've met are very empathetic, right? They really understand their clients. And so I think focusing on that and making that something that is conscious. I think sometimes they're kind of unconscious about it because it's natural to them. And they do it and they're great at it. But if you make it very conscious and you focus on it, it's going to draw those clients and create that connection even more. So being very conscious about the alignment that you have with your client and their needs is really important. And I think that it can also help in terms of really deciding if they're a great client. So I actually have a lot of spa stories. My current massage therapist, esthetician, we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And one of the things that she has a really hard time with is letting clients go. And she has some clients who are not necessarily aligned with her way of doing things it doesn't always feel comfortable for her. And so I would say be aligned with yourself as well. One of the things that I know sometimes is a problem for her is that she is distracted, right? While she's working with her client, she wants to be very present. She wants to be, focused on that person's needs. And sometimes the way that they are showing up in the appointment, it just isn't in alignment with her. And so she will often give more of herself and try to make it work. And I think that's the other side of alignment, right? So there's being empathetic, knowing what your client needs, but not to the exclusion of your own comfort and your own knowledge about what's the right relationship with your client. And not every client is going to want to be connected with you, and you are not necessarily going to want to be connected with every client who walks through the door. And I think that the more you focus on that, the right connection and being aligned, I think the more likely you're going to be creating that kind of trust and relationship that's going to happen. So that's really going to take your business to the next level. So
Can I think that alignment is there real quick? Because I have a few things I want to say about that.
Awesome.
I think that so often entrepreneurs in general, so the average esthetician in the United States, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, makes about $30,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is not high, but there are also estheticians out there that are making $250,000 a year. So there's a huge range in our industry. And I personally, there's a few reasons for this, but I believe it's because our schooling is regulated by states. There's some states that require 300 hours. There's some states that require 1,500 hours, but none of these trainings have business in them and teach how it's only about how to care for the skin. So that's a whole nother episode.
Right.
Just to let you know, the average esthetician in the United States is pulling in about $30,000 a year.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of fear that if I let a client go, it's kind of this lack, this scarcity, like, will I be able to make enough money to support my business, to support my family? And because you did hit the nail on the head when you said that so many estheticians are really empathetic people. and because we're empathetic, because we're caregivers, because we have this really sacred, special relationship with our clients, it feels strange to us sometimes. We feel like we're selling, and it makes us feel icky.
Yep.
And it's not, we have to shift our mindset into we're providing them, we're offering them a service that they are coming to us for. We're providing them value. We're providing them with confidence. I mean, there's so much to what we do and what we offer. And
Absolutely.
but there is that, like, that fear of letting a client go. And I see that also in so many estheticians wanting to offer such a wide variety of services. And they become a jack of all trades, a master of none. And you see the estheticians that are making $250,000 a year, they're the ones that are just doing lashes, or just doing, they're just doing one particular thing and getting really niche down. And so I just wanted to add, like, it's so important to know who your ideal client is, to get really focused on services that you like doing, because you're spending a huge amount of your very precious time in that workspace.
Yes.
Like your esthetician, if she's working with someone that makes her uncomfortable, that makes her feel out of alignment, out of flow, that's not going to be good for any of her other clients or for the growth of her business. Because
exactly,
we do, like when I was still practicing, and I would see sometimes 10 patients a day, and you have a different energy from all of them.
Yes.
And some come in and they want to talk about their kids, and then other people come in and they're like not happy. And you kind of take on that energy when you're touching them and working on them and listening to them. And so you really have to kind of like, okay, how can I release this energy? How can I let that go so I can be my best self for my next patient? But if you're working with people who are not in alignment with you, just like you're saying, it's going to take more energy for you to get back into your zone.
Yes, definitely. So I think that alignment is super important, not just that you know and understand your client's needs so that you can serve them, but that you have that connection aligned and that it's good for you as well. Because I think one of the things I've told my esthetician is, if you're not feeling good, you're not providing the level of service you want to, right? Mm-hmm. You are trying to provide something more than just, I'm putting cream on your face, right? I mean, that's not what your customers are here for. And so I think that that's super important. And for all the reasons that you mentioned, that energy thing is, you can't see it, you can't touch it, but boy, you can feel it.
It's how I describe it, because it was really, so I imagine you are too, but I'm more logical in a lot of things.
Yes.
And so I was just like, what? It was like, it took me a little while, but the way that I describe it is that if you walk into a room where someone's having a really awkward conversation and nobody said anything, but you can feel that awkward energy. You can feel that something's off in the room. That's what I say is your sixth sense, your subconscious is picking that up.
Yeah.
And whether we understand it or not, how that works, we can feel that.
Yeah.
And our subconscious can transfer energy, especially when you are working on a client or a patient. Like if you're feeling off, it's going to come through in your work no matter what.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what was your next? You said you had a couple of things.
I had a couple, yeah. So the second one is this idea of outstanding onboarding. And so you only get one crack at making a first impression, right? And I think that first appointment and the way that your client is treated, the kind of care you take with making sure they're comfortable with that appointment is really important. And I mean, I've been getting massages for, 20 years. 20, oh boy, it's longer than that. Okay, I'm just starting to age myself now. But even though I was experienced with getting massages, when I go to a new provider, it's a different thing. I don't know that person and I don't know their process, the routine. And so I think it's really important to handhold your client through that, to provide a lot of support through that. So if you're, for example, scheduling your appointments online, I know a lot of folks who are solopreneurs, you're trying to outsource what you can to automation, which is awesome, but that might feel a little more distant to someone. And so maybe an email sequence that feels more personal after they've actually made their appointment.
I love that. Yeah, like a confirmation email that introduces who you are, provides a picture, tells them what to expect.
Exactly. I think that what to expect piece is huge. And so in my model, I love a goal-oriented onboarding process. And it can be very small, but having a goal at the end. So what is the goal? To get them into their appointment in comfort and ease, to get them a great experience. You know that once you've got them on your table, in your chair, whatever it is, they're going to love you because they're getting that personalized, more intimate experience that they know they're paying for. But until they get there, until you're actually working on them, there's a lot of opportunity for them to say, well, I don't know, is this the right thing? Is this the right person? So you want to reinforce this is the right thing for you to be doing. This is the right person for you to be doing it with, right up until the time that you are able to lay your healing hands on them. Sounds like a revival.
I know. I think that reinforcing this is the right thing to be doing is really important because you said in the beginning of this interview that you look at seeing your esthetician as part of health, which is what we believe as well. And I mean the aesthetics community. But in society, so many people look at aesthetics treatments and massage and these kind of things as luxury items.
Yes.
And they don't look at it as something that's truly improving their health, improving their well-being. The skin is the largest organ in the body. It's constantly exposed. Skin cancers are at a high.
Yeah.
So we believe that it's with health, but it's nice to reinforce that to our clients and patients and let them know you're doing the right thing. This is not something you should feel guilty about doing something for yourself. And I think that especially moms get that if they're busy and they're, I now relate everything to being a mom since I have a toddler and she's zooming around the house all the time. And so I'm like, oh man, if I go and get a treatment, I should be, it's the I should or whatever.
Right.
And I'm an esthetician. So it's I know that other moms that are not in this field, they can have that guilt. So I think it's really important to reiterate the importance of self-care and to really let them believe that if their cup's not full, no one else's is going to be. You will be a better mom. You will be a better wife. You will be a better friend. You will be a better partner if you are taking care of yourself first.
So true. And I love to refer back to, the airlines, right? Everybody refers to putting your oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. And it's true. If you're not 100%, the cup only has so much in it, as you say, right? If you're not 100%, you are not going to be able to give to all the people in your life that you love and want to give back to. So that is exactly how I see my healthcare partner in my massage therapist, my esthetician. And I think that, as you say, reinforcing that, particularly in the onboarding, I think is a really, really smart way so that when they get to you and you start working on them, they have already been thinking about what you're doing as part of their healthcare routine, as part of what's going to help keep them full in their lives and be able to fulfill the things that they want to do, achieve their dreams, serve the people that they serve, and so on. So I think that for the spa community, that absolute alignment and the outstanding onboarding, I think, are really key. And I'll just tell one more story about outstanding onboarding. So when I live in Maine now, but when I lived in California, I used to go to a spa called La Belle Day Spa in the Bay Area. And I loved it. And because, of course, I have this kind of weird view of life, which is all about how do you treat me after I give you my credit card number. I evaluate every experience I have in every store, anyone I give money to. I kind of look at, how are you treating me now that I've given you my credit card number? And I remember sitting at La Belle Spa. I had, I was getting a massage, so I had all my clothes off. I was in a super warm, cuddly robe. I had a heated lavender neck pillow on. I had my feet in this warm, oil-scented foot bath. I had a glass of cucumber water in my hand. It was like the whole thing. And what I realized is it was getting me in the mindset of my massage. It was bringing me down from the outside world. In the Bay Area is crazy. There are far too many people there. It should not be legal to have that many people crowded into such a small space. So there's a lot of just stressful feeling in that area. And as I sat there thinking, oh, this is wonderful. This is such a great experience. I realized, wait, they told me to be here a half hour early. And they did all this, which is great. And they told me they were going to do it and so on. But I thought, this kind of reminds me of Disney. The first time I went to Disney, they had just opened the Star Tours ride. And the line to the ride was a ride in and of itself. And I thought, they're creating an experience that's keeping them on schedule. So again, look at outstanding onboarding as a way to facilitate your process, your needs as the person performing the service, but also how can you tie that into a really exceptional experience for your client? And I realized, when I'm there half an hour early, if the dressing rooms are busy, I still have time to undress. If, I'm sitting there relaxing, but at the top of the hour when my massage is going to happen, I'm already in a room face down. They had it's a big day spa. There are tens of therapists there. I mean, they had a machine, right? They were running a machine in the background, but I never, ever felt like it was a machine. It always felt very personal. But I realized, taking a step back and kind of analyzing it, it was not only meeting my needs and making me feel incredibly pampered and luxurious, but it was meeting the spa's needs and the therapist's needs because they had a schedule and so on. And so I would offer to your audience the idea that you don't have to be divorced from your customers' needs, and especially in onboarding. If you think a little creatively about it, you can create this amazing experience that makes them feel like $1 million and helps enable your business. And I think that's the sweet spot, right?
And I love that. And there seems to be in spa, or at least in my experience, people get really hung up on time. Like if I had a 50-minute massage, I want the full 50 minutes. Yes. If I got 48 minutes, I feel like a sucker, and that's not always the case, but there's some people that are really measuring time. And so if you have somebody come in a half an hour early, they're doing, this whole experience that you were just talking about, it doesn't cost the spa anything. It costs the lavender pillows, it costs the foot oil or whatever. This is something that you don't have to be on a big scale to do something like this.
Exactly.
You can get people, and also, I don't know about for you, but for me, when I get a massage, it takes me 20 minutes to relax in the first place.
Yes.
Because I'll notice, am I frowning or is my face so tense? Yes. Or, and it's like, oh, I just have to breathe. But if you have that time up front to relax, to read a magazine, when was the last time you sat down and read a magazine, And
probably the last time I went to La Belle.
But it's such an amazing thing that you can do. You're not worried about getting in on time. It just really changes the energy of your clients. You allow them to sit after if they want to.
Yes.
And someone can then be like, oh, I was at the spa for 2 hours. It was so luxurious. It was so, and you can do this as a solo esthetician as well. You may need 2 rooms. You may need a spa attendant or concierge or someone, but that's like, you can make it happen. Don't limit yourself based on, there's a will, there's a way. I definitely believe in that.
Yeah.
So, Andrea, we talked about first being in alignment. So bringing the right clients into your practice, which has to do with obviously getting really clear on your ideal client, doing some really specific targeting when you're attracting new clients in the door. We talked about onboarding and really creating an amazing experience for those clients to surprise and delight them, to wow them, to just have them feel so taken care of and so loved. What about the follow-up? What about after the treatment, after the sale?
Love it. So I think that there is another part of my framework that applies really well here, and that's having a consistent cadence. You'll notice I do a lot of alliteration that comes from being a writer. So absolute alignment, outstanding onboarding, and consistent cadence. And the cadence is really about figuring out what the interaction schedule should be. Like, how often should you be reaching out and touching that person? And by touching, I mean with email or a follow-up phone call, or encouraging them to make another appointment, or letting them know about new products you have that would work really well for them. I mean, I had really oily skin when I was younger. So, my esthetician might think, we just got something new. It's working really great on people with oily skin. I'm just going to give Andrea a quick phone call and say, hey, Andrea, we've got this new product. You might be really interested in it. So for your next appointment, can I mark you down to try it? Yeah, that'd be great. Right? So just this idea that you're having some regular interaction with that person. And for me, especially if you get a client like me who, I get a massage, I get my treatments every 2 weeks. Scheduling those appointments out so that they're booked, and that person, I'll tell you, my massage therapist, I feel like her only client often, because I know I'm getting the best appointment for my schedule because I schedule it out, and I know I'm getting that Friday afternoon appointment or that Saturday morning appointment or whatever that sweet time is for me. And so have some ideas in your head as you're closing that first appointment about how you might want to talk to your client about follow-up. So do you want to offer them the next appointment, which I'm sure is something that you guys are thinking about all the time, but maybe you want to offer them to schedule out a few appointments. Hey, we're getting in this area, right? There's not so many people around in the winter, lots of people around in the summer. And so around February, March, my massage therapist will say, hey, let's schedule your appointments through the summer because the summer people are going to show up and my schedule is going to get super booked. So I want to make sure you're getting the best schedule for you. Well, now suddenly I feel like I'm one of the primary people of concern for her. And she's getting some security knowing that I've got my appointments booked out. So thinking about some ways that you can close that first experience with some ideas that are going to show your client you're caring about them, you want them to come back, you're concerned about their health, etc. Making some recommendations, maybe saying to someone, for a while, your shoulders are really tight, or, you've got some real breakouts around your hairline, for a short time, maybe like the next month, it would probably be good if you came in once a week or every other week, and then we can stretch it out more. Let's take care of, these initial things that are going on for you. So you may want to think about, especially as you're working on them, because the more personal you can make it, the better. So what is something that you can pull from the discussion you're having, or the treatment you're giving them that can suggest some ongoing engagement with them. And then figure out what a nice schedule would be to have that interaction with them. And it may not be a money spending interaction. It may not be another appointment. It might just be a follow-up call. If it's the first time they've ever come and gotten a facial from you, for example, calling them a couple of days later and saying, how's your skin looking? How's this problem spot holding up, etc. I mean, that is amazing. And you find a lot of doctors and things do that. My veterinarian does that whenever we go in and have something important done. And I think that kind of thing, again, it gets back to reinforcing the idea that this is healthcare. I care about you. I care about your skin. I care about your muscles. I care about your stress. And we're here to make you feel better, to make you healthier. I'm your partner in this. And so following up with them is really important.
The kind of unspoken thing that's going on here is that it's not weird or uncomfortable to tell them to come in when you have a solid relationship with them.
Exactly.
I think so many people are like, well, yeah, I'd love for my clients to rebook. I'd love to do that. But if you don't have that trust, if you don't focus on that relationship, if you don't focus on serving them completely from your heart in alignment, then it will feel weird.
Yes.
It will feel weird. But if you have that relationship, you're calling them to check on them. I like to say with communication, it should be 80% value, 20% promotion.
Yes.
So you're calling to check on them. If you're sending out emails, it's giving them skincare tips, letting them know about product ingredients, anything that can provide education or value.
Yes.
And then 20% of that is promotion. But I see so many spas and so many businesses that it's just a monthly e-blast. So if you think that you had a friend and she called you once a month and asked you to buy something, would you have a good relationship with her?
No.
Would you stop answering the phone?
Exactly.
Yes. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, these are people, these on your email list, these are people. And so, creating a relationship that's not just once a month, here's what I have to buy. It's, I actually want to know how you're doing. I want to see how your skin is doing. What tweaks can we make to these products? I was thinking about you for this. And yeah, it's making those phone calls are not weird. If you don't think it's weird when your doctor calls to follow up, you don't think it's weird when the vet calls to follow up.
Exactly.
It's just part of what it is.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because I think that the spa community has a unique opportunity in this, because they do right off the bat have a closer connection with their clients. So for someone who does online business with other businesses, you could amass a list of, 100,000 people on your email list, and they do start becoming entries on an email list. But because you're dealing with clients up close and personal, face-to-face, et cetera, you tend to be forced into the mode of, hey, look, this is a real person. This is Daniela, and she has this kind of hair and this kind of skin, and she likes these kinds of treatments and so on. And I think that that's a really unique opportunity to, for lack of a better term, exploit in the way you build your relationship with your clients, because you do know a lot about them. You've got them on your table for 50 minutes. And they're probably chatting with you and telling you things about their life and so on. And so being able to give them tips and advice and high value information without selling to them is, I think, easier. It's a huge opportunity that you can kind of slide into, because you're already starting to build that trusting relationship. So I think that's really, really great advice. And I would definitely encourage, again, figuring out what's a good cadence for you to be interacting with them and be able to offer them advice, tips, and product suggestions and appointment scheduling and so on. I mean, you've got to mix that in. You've got a business. And frankly, I suspect, especially if you're empathetic, you're offering that from the right place, which is, I truly believe you should come in and get another facial. It's going to be the right thing for your skin. It's not because I'm just trying to, extort money out of you or, get your credit card as an open fountain of money into my business. That's not what, I don't know any esthetician, massage therapist, et cetera, that I've worked with who has ever come across that way. And I think especially when you come across from your heart, the way, you've really, I personally, I could not work with my hands on people. I just wouldn't, it's not my thing. So I feel like, you are super unique. This community is super unique and really, really important. And that comes through whenever I've met an esthetician. That just everything they're doing is really coming from this heart-centered place. And I think you can really take advantage of that, right? Use that in your relationship building. And then, you're not in a weird place when you do have a product or an appointment or a treatment. Hey, I just started doing these new body wraps. I'd love to offer you one. And in fact, so that's since I said that, let me bring up one other thing. And that is something I call significant surprises. And if you do, for example, have a new treatment, like that's a great reason to reach out to someone. But also, one of the things I found is when I work with a business and they offer some big discount to new customers, okay, that's fine. But when they call me and they're offering me a discount because I'm an existing customer, they say, hey, I've got in this case, I've got a new treatment. I know you've talked about body wraps and you've asked about them. And I've got this great seaweed thing or this new mud thing. I would love to offer you 10% off if you wanted to come in and try one. Because you're a customer, because we have a relationship, because you're an existing customer. And those surprises don't have to be monetary. It could be something totally different, but
I love to do added value. So
yes.
For existing, So you're preaching to the choir here because I say the same. It's like invite your VIPs in. And so I would say, like at our spas that I worked at before, every year we would look at who our top 10 clients were for the entire year. And we would invite them in for a free treatment. And we would pitch.
What a great idea.
It would be like so in spa, we look at cost of treatment. So how much does it actually cost us to perform that? Not the labor or anything like that, but the actual product cost.
Right.
So we would look for something that had a low cost of treatment, a high perceived value. And so that the client would feel like a VIP and that we're grateful for their business. And that is how you create advocates because they start talking about you. They start telling their friends because they feel special. They feel seen. They're not a number.
Yes.
So I love doing added value. So if there's things like LED light, that's something that doesn't cost money to the esthetician, but it has a perceived value. So maybe if you have a LED mask that's a $35 upgrade, you can say, oh, I want to do this for you complimentary. So it's not costing them money, but it has that perceived value.
Yes, I love it.
If you can do a foot massage or put their hands in the paraffin mitts or, like whatever these things are, that's just a really low cost that you can surprise. That's the surprise and delight. How can you surprise and delight?
Exactly. They have an expectation. You said it before, right? Under promise, over deliver, right? So you want to overachieve on that experience. And I love that value add. That's awesome.
So before we go, is there anything else that you want to add to make this episode complete for you?
I guess I would say I'll go back to what you started with, which is as a business owner, we do tend to get really focused on, leads and customer acquisition. And are we bringing in enough customers and marketing and sales? And I think for many of us, especially those of us who really work in a person-to-person kind of industry like the spa community, this idea of selling can often feel uncomfortable. And so I'm going to give you permission to not get so wrapped up in the marketing and selling, which might even feel uncomfortable to you, but instead to think about how much of your time you're focusing on your existing client and really focus on that experience and how you're deepening that experience and deepening that relationship with them. So I think that's really remembering your customers after the sale and not thinking of them as a number or another appointment, but a person, and putting all the pieces together. They're going to create the best experience for them and a great experience for you as their healthcare provider. And I would say, don't take it from me. Everyone's telling you, oh, marketing sales, marketing sales. Focus on your customer after the sale, and that is going to reap you great rewards and probably make you feel more comfortable too.
Awesome. So where can people find you if they want to stay in touch, if they want to follow you?
Awesome. So my podcast is After the Sale, and it's actually just coming out on iTunes, which is super cool. So you could get it on iTunes and Stitcher and all those places. But you can also go to afterthesale.podcast.com. It's all one word. And my program for entrepreneurs is called Member Keepers. So you can go to memberkeepers.com. It's not open at the moment, but there's a wait list if folks are interested in my membership coaching program for entrepreneurs, all about how to keep your customers, customer retention. And I call them members because to me, if you treat them like members of your business family, then you're less likely to think about them as numbers or entries on your email list and so on. So something the spa community probably has to think a little less hard about, but I think that many of us have to really stop and think consciously about sometimes.
Awesome. Well, we will include those links in the show notes. And thank you, Andrea, so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Daniela. This has been super fun. And I'm excited to see where your community goes with really nurturing those client relationships. I think it's going to blow the roof off their business.